The second point I made is just a political point, and this is something I noticed going back to the days of Reagan. There are some politicians who have this kind of larger-than-life quality, which is very evident. I mean, if you're in a large ballroom of 1,000 people and Reagan walked in the room, it was unbelievable to see everything go silent, every head turn. And even Reagan, I noticed, I mean, this is maybe part of his Hollywood, he's very aware of this. And he was very careful. Just the way he held himself, the way he cocked his head, he knew that he was under sort of observation. Now, there are other people who are really good guys, and I saw this with a lot of Reaganites who were they were essentially clones of Reagan on policy issues, but they just didn't have that je ne sais quoi, they just didn't have that star quality. They just didn't have that yeah, that's it. And so with this, so my point to Anne was that sort of, if you could combine the kind of charisma of Trump with the ruthless operational efficiency of DeSantis, that's kind of what I think everyone is looking for.
Yeah, well, that's why, to me, regardless of who I want to be the nominee, it's been so disappointing because it's like, man, all the pieces are here. We could have the most united party.
Exactly.
Probably, well, certainly in my lifetime, or maybe not since Reagan re-election or something. I
mean, I'm not advising Trump, but if I were, I'd be like, listen, the first thing to do, and this is actually what a big man does, is call up DeSantis and sit down and say, you know what, we would make an unbelievable team. And not to mention the fact that, how do you, when you think about people who say things like, let's defund the FBI, let's take down the FBI, I say to myself, well, we need an FBI. I mean, we need a law enforcement agency that goes after organized crime. The FBI does a lot of good things. So how do you sort of fix the FBI? It's not a simple matter of I'm going to fire the Christopher Wray and put in a new guy. Somebody needs to burrow into the FBI and root out the bad guys because there's a corrupt structure of incentives that goes all the way down that makes even the good people act badly. And so you need a bureaucratic infighter to do that. So imagine if Trump were to say to DeSantis, you are my man to drain the swamp, but I need you to go into the swamp. And you're the guy to do it and clean it up because that's actually not my temperament. I have the intention and I now have, of course, the determination. But see, this is a mature politics and this is what a mature party would do. But the fact that it's not happening, it doesn't mean to me it won't happen. But I share your, exasperation that it doesn't seem to be headed in that direction.
Right. You could even take a guy like RFK to me and send him to go fix the agencies. Even though I have big political disagreements with him, it's like that's a guy who's fighting a lot of the same battles that you're talking about when it came to COVID overreach and everything else. Like, he's a lawyer. He seems to get it. Like, send him in.
I mean, think of the value it would be to Trump to find a prominent Democrat and basically say, this guy is going to be like my czar on COVID and free speech. And having a Democrat, I mean, there's a strategic value to all this, which, you think our side would understand by now. So this is a broader frustration I have. And I think if there's one message I have implicit in Police State, it's not in the movie, but I think it's the clear take-home value of the movie, is that the spine of the Republicans needs to be stiffened. And Republicans also need to fight smarter because we're up against something. I don't know an alternative to the Republican Party, and I don't really sympathize with people who talk about a third party or we need some other, because this is the mechanism we have, and it's a mechanism with a great history, and it's one that could be very effective if we use the power, just the power that we already have right now.
Yeah. Do you sometimes think, and again, as a guy that lives in Texas and me here in Florida, that the micro version of it, the experiment of America, the state part of it will work? We have an incredibly powerful Republican Party here. We basically don't have a Democrat Party anymore in Florida. You're not quite at that level in Texas, but like you've got a functional state that it'll just work in some places and it won't work in others. But of course, that ever encroachment.
No, I mean, I think that's right. I do think that the decentralization of power is an important theme for us because I think Hayek used the phrase a framework of competing utopias. Hey, listen, you know what? You have a bunch of states and the 50 states are doing a lot of different things. Some are going to work and some aren't. To me, what's interesting about the Democrats is that they are showing creatively imaginative ways to ruin places in different ways. So I just saw something very amusing about the San Francisco model versus the Chicago model. So the San Francisco model is that you don't have drive-by shootings where you have a massive homicide rate. The San Francisco model is, let us have a low-grade criminality, but spread it throughout the city. You cannot escape it. You know what I mean? It's everywhere.
True. It's everywhere.
Yeah, some psycho homeless guy is going to come up to you and punch you, or grab a chicken wing off your plate. But it allows the liberals to say, well, listen, I'm being compassionate, and the guy has issues. Now, the Chicago model is that you have just like open gunfire. But interestingly, it's not all over Chicago. It's in the black areas, it's in the barrios, it's in certain pockets. And so the progressive can say, well, it's not affecting me. It's not in my neighborhood. Bam, bam, bam. Somebody else is getting killed. So it creates...
It's happening at their universities now.
Except exactly. So they even ultimately suffer